Yeah, coming up. Let this song roll for a while. I'm in a bad mood now. Just looking at what the globalists are doing to us. I'm so sick of it. It's so ridiculous. Well, listen, Islamicist news where they're like people being arrested. They're screaming F America. And they've engaged in all these crimes, and Islamic professors admitting that it's all part of a caliphate takeover and calling us weak. It's just crazy third world war zone populations that all kill each other being brought in, and we're supposed to all just bow down and worship it. Yeah, it's running a little bit hot tonight. Reach down, between my legs, ease the seat back. That's when you go ahead and let those superchargers kick in and all 700-plus horsepower engages. Go ahead and crank this part up. And then you're in West Texas, and all thought ceases except keeping that car lined up in the middle of the line because you're going up to 200 miles an hour. And the telephone poles are... Listen to this part right here. I don't drive like that anymore, though. Yeah, it's running a little bit hot tonight. I can barely see the road from the heat coming on. Yeah. I got the globalists attacking me between my legs. Ease the seat back. She's coming. This takes me back to being 10 years old. Was this Diver Down? The name of the album? It's like a diver flag. I think this is Diver Down. Had this on record. Listened to it all the time. My parents would hardly ever buy me anything, but if I wanted to go to rock concerts or get records, my mom would take me to the record store after school. But that's because she liked music too. All right, there you go. A little bit of fun. Let me reset here and get serious. This video is encoding right now. It'll be up on YouTube and Facebook in the next hour or so. And I really wanted to have it up this morning so we get a maximum push. It's so darn important. But I'm going to have a few of the writers write articles about it today and tomorrow so that hopefully it gets a push. And hopefully you will think it's important and you will send it out on your email list, post it to your Twitter, your Facebook, put it out on your local radio station, because there was election fraud early on. There has been election fraud, and now they're trying to steal the election now. And you notice it's gone from being no issue, a 0 on the Richter scale, to a 10. It's gone from 0 to stratospheric in the last 4.5 weeks because I came down here on a Saturday with Rob Jacobson and shot the video. And you got the video out. And Donald Trump responded. And the public responded. I've had the press call him and say, did you tell Donald Trump that? He did come out word for word and say what you... Yes, I talked to Donald Trump, but that doesn't matter. It's about the election. And it's about responding. Trump knows what's going on. We just put out well-produced, factoid-laced, chopped full of documentation videos that prove what's going on. The New World Order is absolutely out of control. It isn't controlling itself. It sold world government as a plan to end war, end poverty, and build us a palace to the stars. Instead, they used it to screw job everybody and pull up the ladders of success and create unmitigated hell, which they've now packaged into this cosmology of austere living and being poor and how cool it is, while the priests of this religion lecture us from red carpet podiums sitting next to palaces and jumbo jets. It isn't flying. The dog isn't hunting. So this report is going to go up on Infowars.com. It's very important. I don't know what we call it. Obama admits Donald Trump is right about election fraud, or this video will stop 2016 election fraud if you spread it. I mean, I don't know. Here's the point. We get lightning in a bottle all the time. Whenever I have the tumblers click in my brain and I figure something out and I act on it, it's always important. It's always world-changing. It's always big. Not just because of Alex Jones, because of you and Matt Drudge and so many others. All I know is this video is important. This information is important. They're bringing foreign governments in to run our elections because of the deadly danger of election fraud, which they say didn't exist 5 weeks ago. The president and Hillary are having to attack me by name now because we're hurting them. You're hurting them. And to quote an amazing thespian Shakespearean actor, Ricardo Montalban, when he played Khan in The Wrath of Khan in the 1980s, he said, I'm hurting you, and I'm going to go on hurting you. So run as fast as you can. You'll never escape. Except this isn't a movie where you do escape. You will not escape. Let's go ahead and play the special report. Barack Hussein Obama and Hillary Rodham Clinton are in total panic. They've been forced to admit that Donald J. Trump is right about systemic election fraud.
Can you promise the American people that this election will be conducted in a fair way?
First of all, it's rigged. And I'm afraid the election's going to be rigged, I have to be honest.
Of course the elections will not be rigged. What does that mean?
Russian hackers were behind 2 recent attempts to breach state voter registration systems.
Good to see you in this exercise in transparency and democracy.
The FBI has issued an advisory that urges the states to look for specific signs that could indicate attempts at similar cyber attacks.
But I want to tell you again, I don't know anything about it. And on the state level, Russia has never done this.
Multiple senior government officials tell NBC News they are now confident Russian intelligence was behind the DNC hack, although they lack definitive proof.
Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material and often very significant risks. There's a 27-year-old who works for the DNC who was shot in the back, murdered.
Is that what it is? If we see signs that a voting machine or system is vulnerable to hacking, then we inform those local authorities who are running the elections that they need to be careful.
Some short-term, long-term things I think that we should do to bolster the cybersecurity around the election process. I am considering communicating with election officials across the country about best practices.
But of most concern, of course, are the separate computer systems that count and report actual votes. So far, no sign that any of those have been compromised.
This black box is unaccountable, untestable, privately run software from the 2 companies that you have hired to count our votes. So when the votes come out of this black box, they do not reflect the New York City or the national votes. In 22 primaries, the votes have shifted in 20 of them. The exit polling data in New York State shifted 12%. A shift of 2% is fraud, according to the U.S. State Department. So that's what we've seen across the country.
The Russians, and do I think they're trying to help Trump? That's the point. Are they, right?
Russia has denied any involvement in the attacks on the U.S., and President Putin called the accusations an attempt to distract the public's attention.
Doesn't even matter who hacked this data from the campaign headquarters of Mrs. Clinton. The important thing is the content that was given to the public.
A little over a month ago, on July 30th, I pointed out the elephant in the room, Sanders. Mr. Trump, I'm not going to lay things out here that you don't already know. But I am going to ask you to seriously think about making the issue of Hillary's election fraud in the primaries one of the central issues to defeating her in November. We had just witnessed Hillary Clinton steal the nomination from Bernie Sanders. Now Stanford University's done their own study, has concurred with our analysis. We'd seen the Republican Party try to steal the nomination from Donald Trump by claiming that popular vote never counted.
The media has created the perception that the voters will decide the nomination, and that's the concept. That's the conflict here.
We feel like we live in a democratic society. What you're telling me is it's not a democratic society, and your votes don't necessarily matter because it's a democratic representation, correct?
No, that's not what I'm trying to tell you. What I'm trying to say is that we're just one of the political parties. There's many political parties, but political parties choose their nominee, not the general public.
George Will even wrote an editorial for the Washington Post saying, your mere plurality of votes doesn't override the party's sovereignty. InfoWars issued an emergency message to Donald Trump, and within 48 hours, he responded.
First of all, it's rigged. And I'm afraid the election's going to be rigged, I have to be honest.
Why would you think that the election would be rigged?
Well, I'm looking at all of these decisions coming on down from the standpoint of identification, voter ID. And I'm saying, what do you mean? You don't have to have voter ID to now go in and vote? And it's a little bit scary, and I've heard a lot of bad things. I must say, 4 years ago, I was hearing a lot of bad things having to do with the Romney campaign, where, you know, when the vote came out, there were some districts who were really shockingly different from what they were anticipated to be, and I've been seeing it.
Within days of Donald Trump warning the people of the United States of the ongoing plot to steal the general election, Barack Obama went public and said that it was preposterous, ridiculous. In fact, he didn't even know what election fraud was.
It is... I don't even really know where to start on answering this question. Of course the elections will not be rigged. What does that mean? The federal government doesn't run the election process. States and cities and communities all across the country, they're the ones who set up the voting systems and the voting booths. And if Mr. Trump is suggesting that there is a conspiracy theory that is being propagated across the country, including in places like Texas, where typically it's not Democrats who are in charge of voting booths. That's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense, and I don't think anybody would take that seriously.
Now the Washington Post, the New York Times, USA Today, Politico, you name it, are coming out and saying, we are so threatened by supposed Russian hackers in the database, and the Russian government runs Trump, and they run Alex Jones, and they run Paul Joseph Watson, why Putin runs everything, and they're dangerous, and we need to send Homeland Security in to take control of the elections to make sure they're not stolen from Hillary Rodham Clinton.
What I can say more broadly for the administration is that there has been a discussion about whether or not to designate certain voting systems that are, of course, maintained at the state and local level as pieces of critical infrastructure. And that would give the federal government and experts of the federal government.
But within weeks of Trump's announcement that he would be sending out observers to make sure our elections weren't fraudulent, Obama did a 180. He hired the UN, and he hired the security agency of the European Union, the OSCE, to come into the United States with Justice Department power and take over the elections to make sure that they were protected and had integrity.
The federal government doesn't run the election process. States and cities and communities all across the country, they're the ones who set up the voting systems and the voting booths. And if Mr. Trump is suggesting that there is a conspiracy theory that is being propagated across the country, including in places like Texas, where typically it's not Democrats who are in charge of voting booths, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense, and I don't think anybody would take that seriously.
The truth is the Democratic Party in Illinois and California and many other states were openly pushing to let illegal aliens actually vote in the 2016 election. And Donald Trump and others are aware of that fact. And so they were calling to have local governments be involved in the integrity of the election process. So what did the feds do? They announced all these foreign observers were to come over, but they were going to then restrict domestic independent groups from poll watching. So what they're saying is, we'll let foreigners come in and watch from the socialist EU, but we won't let Americans oversee the elections internally. Look at this headline. Election security, federal help or power grab? Some state election officials say officers to aid the fight against hackers could lead to Washington taking greater control. And that's what Roger Stone said months ago on my radio show. He said, look, it'll be the feds coming in to oversee the elections that steal it. USA Today had the headline, Homeland Security can't step in to protect the election. The Examiner reported, Homeland eyes special declaration to take charge of elections. Here's the facts. The Russians have a GDP the same size as Italy. They're not influencing the United States in any way that's even measurable. The globalists have conquered this country. They've taken it over by stealth. They've captured our nation by fraud. And they are so scared that nationalists, just like the nationalists we saw in the UK that voted for the Brexit, are now actually communicating with the people through the new independent media. That's why they're calling for internet censorship. That's why they're calling for internet IDs. That's why they're calling for actually shutting down Matt Drudge and sites like drudgereport.com and Infowars.com, because they can't compete with the facts. They can't compete with the information. And they know we're not going to stand by and watch them steal the election like they tried to do with the primaries. And so they're claiming we're Russian agents. The truth is, we're agents of an open and truly free society and a republic where it's one person, one vote, no matter what race, color, or creed you are, as long as you bleed red blood and are American. And the truth is, Donald Trump and countless others are mobilizing private, independent poll watchers that are going to expose the fraud. And it's got the power structure really shaken up. They thought they'd just come in and steal this general election like they stole the primary for Bernie Sanders. They thought they'd do it in the dark when none of us were watching. The truth is, we're watching. So now they're doubling down, bringing in the EU, the UN, and all these Democrat-run feds to save the integrity of it, when they were just telling us a month ago that there was total integrity and nothing to worry about. They're panicking because they know humanity is on the march and their oppressive empire of tyranny is on the run. 2016 is a crossroads. It's one of the most important times in humanity's history. And you better believe the entire crew and the listeners and viewers of InfoWars are going to be there on the right side of history, defending open, free societies and our right to vote in this constitutional republic that is known as the United States of America. We truly premiered that here, because a lot of times I'll premiere something but have it go simultaneously up on Infowars.com. Dude added so many clips, so many documentation to that we're a little late getting out, which is fine. He did a great job. It's not on Infowars.com yet. It's not on PrisonPlanet.com yet. It'll be up there in the next 30 minutes or so. And I'm just asking every viewer, every listener. I know you already know all this. You saw us warn back at the time. You're aware of it. You've got the research. But your neighbors, your friends, your family aren't. Now, what really happened here? The truth is the Trump campaign was already aware of all this. So I don't want to say they did it because I told them to, but it certainly added to the impetus. And Trump told me, no, I'm going to be covering this the next few days already. So we're just on the same page, basically. But where they didn't go, where I advised them to, is, hey, you stole it from Bernie Sanders, so you're illegitimate. Now, I can't stop you in the party from you being the fraudulent nominee, but don't try to steal it from me. And then that gets all the Sanders people on your side. They want to just leave the steal back there at Philadelphia, have you move on to the next issue. That's how globalism works. Always the latest problem, the latest distraction, the latest smoke and mirrors, the latest, you know, funhouse garbage. No, we have a memory, and it's congruent with reality. And so we're back to the future, or we're back to the past and back to the future again. Because as I told Trump and as I told his campaign people, and look, I know you're smart, I know you get all this, but justice is what's in order here. I know nobody's ever done something like this. They've never openly stolen a nomination like this. And I know it's bold to say they stole it, but they did. It's admitted. So you've got to expose it's fraudulent, raise that issue. It's the right thing to do. It makes people worry about election fraud in the future, which makes it harder, puts a spotlight on it, gets more poll watchers, gets more media aware of it, which is what the system didn't want. They said, oh, it's totally has total integrity. What's election fraud? Because they were going to go steal it with no coverage, basically in the dark. No, you're going to do it at high noon now. We're firing the flares in the air. But bigger than that, it then gets all the Sanders people to not just forget what just happened to them, and it makes it a political issue of voting integrity. So you say, hey, you may not agree with everything Trump says or whatever, you still vote for him because at least he was actually nominated by the people. And you win the election by 20 points. I mean, Hillary might have had 20% of the Democratic votes. We did exit polls around the country from Texas to California to New York to Florida. And I mean, it would be 80% for Sanders on election day, 90% for Sanders coming out of the booths. Outside, I'm for Sanders. And then you go turn the TV on and it's Hillary by this landslide. And then they're so arrogant, they admit in newspapers, oh, the delegates, the super delegates decided the night before that it would be Hillary. So you stole all these major primaries. Oh, yeah, Stanford University says so too. Big deal. Move on. I'm not going to move on. Just because you play some little flim-flam game with me. And again, I was like 4 years old at a school function, and my dad, some preschool thing, and they had a magician come with a table and a rabbit. And my dad was whispering in my ear, and he goes, son, that's a box. And they reach down through a trap door and pull a rabbit up into the hat. That's why it's a tall top hat. Now watch, and I got it, that it was a fraud. And it wasn't that my dad was stealing magic from me. That wasn't magic. My parents having me or you, that's magic. Or this planet and where we are in space and what we've done together is magic. Or Beethoven is magic. Not some carnival trick. And my dad was so proud of me when I was one of my earliest memories, like 2.5 years old at Christmas. And we were there in that little 3-bedroom house in Dallas by White Rock Lake on San Fernando Way. And one of my earliest memories, and the neighbors are over and families and everything going, no, Santa Claus comes down the fireplace. And there was a big crackling fire in the Christmas tree. And I said, but he'd burn. Plus, he's fat. This is a little house. This is a little chimney. Oh, he's magic. And I said, no. And I remember like the cracks in the bricks, the mortar. And I said, no, he's too fat to go down that. And my dad looked at me and he said, son, I'm so proud of you. There aren't any 2.5-year-olds that know Santa Claus isn't real. We got big hopes for you. And I'm not bragging. It's just that I didn't believe in Santa Claus at 2.5, and nobody had to tell me. And I don't believe in the New World Order either. I believe in you. And I believe what we're going to do together. I'm going to go ahead and host the whole next hour with Deb at night because we had to push Stone forward. And then we've got this other demonstration I'm going to do. Have you heard they got to roll oranges at Hillary? That's how they do. I'm not kidding. That's how they do press conferences. I tell people this. They go, are you joking? No. She doesn't have press conferences. They roll oranges down the jet. And then if she wants to answer the question with like one word, like, would you rather interview Trump or Putin? Talk to, and she goes, oh, I'd rather talk to Putin. I mean, this is real. In fact, people won't believe me. You guys print some articles. I saw it on the news this morning. It's crazy. Hillary's been doing this for years, but you roll oranges at her. So we're going to have Leanne in here rolling oranges at me. Journalist asked Hillary Clinton question by rolling an orange. And they said, well, this is a customary. This is how she does a press conference. I mean, talk about fruit baggery and all these weirdo Nelly crones that want to start all these wars. I mean, it's just like, it was like some 6'5" badass general with 2 Congressional Medal of Honors. You know, I'd still say don't start a war. But I'd listen to them a lot quicker than I listen to, like, stumbling, jittering idiots. September is Preparedness Month. Now is the best time ever. 30 to 40% off of storable food, X2, a bunch of big discounts, InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com, and your purchases make it all possible. Thank you for your support. Fourth hour starts in 70 seconds. Of course, under Common Core, 2 + 2 can equal anything, so maybe it starts in 87 million years. I don't know, but according to common sense, 70 seconds.
Now we are introducing a new T-shirt, which I think folks need to get, telling the real truth about Bill Clinton, who is a serial rapist and a abuser of women.
In another case, it's about groping and fondling and touching against a woman's will.
And rape.
And rape.
Bill rapes them physically, and then Hillary rapes them psychologically.
He's a rapist.
Absolutely.
He's a public figure and go straight to hell.
Get your Bill Clinton rape shirt today at InfoWarsStore.com or call 1-800-253-3139.